My name is Joyce. I'm 32 and I've spent a decade building a tech company that now employs over 200 people. Last weekend at my high school reunion, Derek, a guy who bullied me for years, laughed in my face about being unemployed. What he didn't know was that he and his two best friends actually worked for me. He found out when termination emails hit their phones signed by the company owner, me. If you've ever been underestimated, give this video a like and subscribe. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and if you've ever had to deal with someone who judged you without knowing your full story. I grew up in a pretty average middle-class neighborhood in Seattle. My parents both worked in education. My dad is a high school history teacher and my mum is a librarian. We never struggled, but we definitely weren't wealthy. I was that kid who was always tinkering with computers, taking them apart, and putting them back together before I was even a teenager. High school wasn't exactly the highlight of my life. I attended Westlake High, where social hierarchy was as rigid as they come. Derek Matthews was the golden boy, captain of the football team, prom king material, and the kind of guy who peaked in high school. His two best friends, Adam Carter and Tyler Simmons, were cut from the same cloth. Adam was the loud, obnoxious one, who would do anything for a laugh, while Tyler was quieter but equally cruel when it came to putting others down. I was their favorite target. Computer girl. They called me like it was some kind of insult. They'd make comments about how I'd never get a boyfriend because I was married to my laptop. Derek was particularly creative with his taunts. He once loudly announced in the cafeteria that I probably coded my own friends, since no real person would hang out with me. The laughter still echoes in my memory sometimes. "Why don't you program yourself a life, Joyce?" That was Derek's favorite line. He'd say it whenever he passed me in the hallway, making sure everyone around could hear. Adam would high-five him while Tyler would smirk silently. The bullying wasn't just about computers. They made fun of my clothes, my hair, my social awkwardness. When I was elected to the Student Technology Committee, they circulated a petition to have me removed, claiming I had hacked the voting system. It wasn't true, of course, but enough people signed it that the principal had to investigate. I was cleared, but the damage to my reputation was done. Senior year, I applied to MIT. It was my dream school, and despite my excellent grades and perfect SAT scores, I received only partial scholarship offers. My parents sat me down and explained that even with financial aid, they simply couldn't afford to send me there. I was devastated. Meanwhile, Derek got a football scholarship to a state university, and he made sure everyone knew about it. "See, Joyce, this is why sports matter more than computers," he told me at graduation. Instead of going to MIT, I stayed home and attended community college while working part-time. I continued coding in my parents' basement, working on a project that started as a distraction from my disappointment, but slowly evolved into something more. I was developing a software solution for supply chain management. Not the sexiest tech product, but one that addressed a significant pain point for many businesses. 2 years into community college, I dropped out to focus on my software. My parents were concerned but supportive. "You've always known what you're doing, Joyce," my mum said. "We trust you." That trust meant everything to me. The next few years were a blur of 18-hour workdays, instant ramen and coding until my fingers cramped. I secured a small business loan, hired my first 2 employees, both brilliant programmers I met online, and launched our product. The timing was perfect. Businesses were desperate for better supply chain solutions, and our software offered flexibility and insights that the big players didn't. Growth was slow at first, then exponential. By year 3, we had 20 employees. By year 5, over 100. Now 8 years in SupplySync employs more than 200 people across 3 offices with headquarters in Seattle. Last year, we turned down unsound acquisition offers in the hundreds of millions. The irony, I've kept a deliberately low profile. No flashy interviews, no speaking circuits, no 30 under 30 lists. I let our CFO handle most public-facing duties while I focus on product development and strategy. Why stay out of the spotlight? Partly it's strategic. I'm not interested in being a girl boss, poster child, or having my gender be the focus instead of our technology. But if I'm being honest, part of it was also lingering insecurity from those high school days. Despite my success, some part of me still heard Derek's voice. "Why don't you program yourself a life, Joyce?" When the invitation to our 15-year high school reunion arrived in my inbox, my first instinct was to delete it. Why revisit a place that held so many painful memories? But my best friend Megan, who's stuck by me since we were 12, convinced me otherwise. "You should go," she insisted during our weekly dinner. Not to show off or anything, but for closure. Those people who made you feel small have no idea who you've become. That's the point, I countered. They still don't know, and I like it that way. Megan shook her head. You're successful despite them, not to spite them. There's a difference. Hiding your success doesn't protect you. It just gives their old power over you new life. She had a point, so I RSVP'd. Yes, I still decided not to announce my success or position. If it came up naturally in conversation, fine, but I wouldn't volunteer it. This wasn't about revenge or showing off. It was about facing my past with the confidence my present should give me. As the reunion date approached, I spent more time than I'd like to admit planning what to wear. Nothing too flashy. I settled on a simple black dress and minimal jewelry. I wanted to look successful, but not like I was trying too hard. The night before, I barely slept my mind cycling through potential interactions and conversations. What if they still see me as that awkward computer girl? I asked Megan during our pre-reunion phone call. Then that's their loss, she replied. But you're not going for them, you're going for you. I promised myself that regardless of what happened, I would stay positive. This reunion was about proving to myself that I had moved beyond those hallway taunts and cafeteria humiliations. I had built something real, something valuable, and nothing that happened at this reunion could take that away from me. Little did I know that the reunion wouldn't just be about facing my past. It would become a pivotal moment where my past and present would collide in ways I never anticipated. The Westlake High School reunion was held at the Sheraton downtown in a ballroom decorated with blue and silver streamers, our school colours. Posters with phrases like "Remember when" and "Go Wolves" adorned the walls along with blown-up photos from our yearbooks. I cringed seeing my senior photo, all braces and frizzy hair, displayed near the entrance. I arrived 30 minutes after the official start time, hoping to slip in unnoticed. No such luck. The moment I handed my name tag to the check-in volunteer, Brenda Williams, former cheerleader and perpetual organizer, her eyes widened. Joyce Thompson, wow, you look amazing. Her enthusiasm seemed genuine, but made me uncomfortable nonetheless. I thanked her politely and moved into the main room, scanning the crowd for familiar faces. The ballroom was about half full with clusters of people gathered around high-top tables and a few braver souls already on the dance floor. A DJ played hits from our high school years and a buffet lined one wall. I grabbed a glass of wine from the bar and found a relatively quiet corner to observe from. I spotted several former classmates I'd been friendly with. Lisa from my AP physics class, Juan from Debate Club, Tara from the school newspaper. I made mental notes to catch up with them later, but my attention was quickly drawn to a loud group near the centre of the room. Derek Matthews stood there, somehow looking almost exactly as he had in high school, just with slightly less hair and slightly more waistline. Adam Carter laughed loudly at whatever Derek was saying, slapping him on the back. Tyler Simmons stood slightly apart, checking his phone, but still clearly part of their circle. All three wore expensive-looking suits and radiated the same confidence they'd always had. I considered avoiding them entirely, but before I could strategize an escape route, Derek's eyes locked with mine across the room. He said something to Adam, who turned to look. They exchanged words, then all three started making their way toward me. My stomach tightened, but I stood my ground, taking a larger sip of wine than I intended. Joyce Thompson, Derek said as they approached, his voice carrying that same condescending tone I remembered. Never thought I'd see you at one of these things. I forced a smile. Derek, Adam, Tyler, nice to see you all. You too, Derek said, looking me up and down in a way that made my skin crawl. You look different. Thanks, I replied flatly. 15 years will do that. Adam jumped in. So what are you up to these days? Still into all that computer stuff? I nodded. Still into it? Yes. Cool, Derek said dismissively. I'm in tech too now, actually. Senior manager at SupplySync. Kind of a big deal. Cuckoo. He adjusted his tie as he said it. I nearly choked on my wine. SupplySync. My company. I knew we had a Derek in marketing, but I'd never connected the dots that it was this Derek. Our company had grown so quickly in recent years that I no longer knew every employee, especially in departments I had less direct contact with. Before I could process this information, Adam chimed in. Yeah, I'm at SupplySync too, sales department, breaking records left and right. He winked at me like we shared a secret. Tyler, who had been quiet, finally spoke. I'm in product development there, working on the new module. My mind raced. All three of them, working for my company. How had I never realized this? I primarily focused on engineering and strategy, leaving hiring in other departments to their respective leaders. Our company had grown to over 200 employees. I couldn't possibly know everyone, but this coincidence seemed almost unbelievable. That's quite a coincidence, I managed to say. Not really, Derek replied smugly. The tech world is small. What about you? Where are you working these days? This was my moment. I could tell them exactly who I was, but something held me back. Curiosity, perhaps, or a desire to see how this played out. I'm between things right now, I said vaguely. Derek's expression immediately shifted from forced politeness to barely concealed disdain. Oh, that's tough. The market can be brutal if you don't keep your skills current. I'm sure something will come along, I said, fighting to keep my voice neutral. You know. Derek continued, his voice taking on a falsely helpful tone. Supply Sync is always hiring. I could put in a good word. Maybe there's an entry-level position in IT support or something. Although, he lowered his voice as if sharing a secret. They're pretty selective, very competitive. Adam snickered. Yeah, not everyone makes the cut. You'd have to really step up your game. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. I'll keep that in mind. What have you been doing since graduation? Tyler asked, his tone less mocking than the others, but still with an undertone of superiority. This and that, I replied. Working on projects. Derek exchanged a glance with Adam. Projects, huh? Like freelance stuff? Or... He trailed off meaningfully. Something like that, I said. Derek nodded, barely concealing his smirk. Well, good for you. Finding your way. Not everyone can be successful right away. Or ever. That was when he said it loud enough for nearby classmates to hear. Joyce here still doesn't have a real job. Some things never change, right? Several people turned to look at us. I felt my face burning with a mixture of anger and humiliation. Not because what he said was true, but because he was trying so hard to embarrass me, and because he had no idea who he was actually talking to. I should go say hello to some other people, I said quietly, setting down my barely touched wine. Sure, Derek said, waving me off. Good luck with those projects. As I walked away, I heard Adam's voice behind me. Remember when she thought she was going to MIT and change the world? Guess real life had other plans. I slipped out of the main ballroom and found a quiet alcove near the restrooms. My hands were shaking. Not with embarrassment, but with rage. These 3 men worked for me. They reported to managers who reported to executives who reported to me. And here they were mocking me, completely unaware of who I actually was. I leaned against the wall in the quiet alcove, my heart pounding. I pulled out my phone and called Megan. How's it going? She asked when she picked up. Meeting any cute former nerds? Megan, I said, my voice tense. You're not going to believe this. Derek Matthews and his 2 cronies from high school, they all work for Supply Sync. What, your company? That's wild. Yes, and they have no idea who I am. Derek just publicly mocked me for being unemployed. In front of everyone. Megan was silent for a moment. Oh my God, what are you going to do? That was the question. Wasn't it? What was I going to do? As CEO, I certainly had the power to fire them, but should I? Would that be an abuse of power? I don't know, I admitted. Part of me wants to march back in there and tell them exactly who they've been making fun of. Another part of me wants to fire them all on the spot. Well, Megan said carefully, legally? It was a good question. I need to check something. I'll call you back. I ended the call and headed to my car where I had my laptop. Once inside, I opened it and connected to our secure company server. I navigated to our HR database and looked up their files one by one. Derek Matthews, marketing manager, hired 3 years ago. Performance reviews showed he was adequate but not exceptional. Several notes about taking credit for team members' ideas. 2 complaints from female employees about inappropriate comments, though neither had resulted in formal action. Adam Carter, sales representative. Hired 2 years ago, referred by Derek. Numbers consistently at or slightly above quota, but multiple notes about aggressive tactics and customer complaints about overselling features. 1 formal warning about expense report discrepancies. Tyler Simmons, product development specialist. Hired 18 months ago, also referred by Derek. More positive reviews overall, described as technically competent but lacking initiative. No formal complaints. None of them were star employees. All were adequately performing their roles, but none were exceptional. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have cause to terminate any of them immediately. But as I dug deeper into their communications and reports, I noticed patterns that troubled me. Derek had been promoting an aggressive marketing strategy that contradicted our company values of transparency and honesty. Adam had been using sales techniques that bordered on deceptive. And while Tyler seemed less problematic, he had been complicit in several project discussions where ethical corners were being cut. I pulled up our company ethics policy, which I had written myself when we expanded beyond 20 employees. All three had signed it. All three had arguably violated it. There were legitimate business reasons that could justify termination, especially for Derek and Adam. I called Sarah, my COO and most trusted advisor. She picked up on the second ring, despite it being a Saturday night. "Joyce, everything okay?" Her voice was concerned. "I need your perspective on something, but I need you to be objective." I explained the situation in general terms without mentioning my personal history with the employees in question. "Let me get this straight," Sarah said after I finished. "You've discovered that 3 employees have been violating our ethics policies, potentially damaging our brand and company culture, and you're wondering if termination is appropriate." "Yes, but there's a complication. I have a personal history with them. They don't know who I am, but I know them, and they haven't been kind to me tonight." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "Are the violations real?" "Yes, very real. I've been looking at their communications and reports." "Would you be considering termination if you didn't have this personal history?" I thought about it honestly. For Derek, yes. His violations are significant. For Adam, probably. For Tyler, maybe not immediately, but he would be on notice. "Then I think you have your answer," Sarah said. "The personal history is irrelevant if the business reasons are legitimate. Just make sure you document everything thoroughly." She was right. I spent the next 30 minutes documenting the violations I'd found, creating termination letters that clearly outlined the business reasons for each. I made sure everything was by the book. As I prepared to sign the digital documents, I paused. Was I doing this for the right reasons? Was I being vindictive? I reread the evidence. Derek had misrepresented our product capabilities to potential clients and taken credit for his team members' work repeatedly. Adam had manipulated sales numbers and used high-pressure tactics that contradicted our company values. Tyler had been less overtly problematic, but had supported initiatives that compromised user privacy. These weren't small infractions. They reflected fundamental misalignments with the company I had built. The company whose values I had carefully crafted and protected. I signed the termination letters, set them to be delivered via email at exactly 9:00 p.m. and instructed HR to process them immediately. Then I texted my executive assistant, "Need immediate termination processing for 3 employees. Details in your email. This is time-sensitive and confidential." She replied almost instantly, "On it. Termination emails will go out at 9:00 p.m. sharp as requested." I checked my watch. It was 8:30 p.m. I had 30 minutes before their worlds changed forever. I took a deep breath and headed back to the reunion. When I re-entered the ballroom, I felt different. Calmer, more centered, and oddly powerful. Not in a vengeful way, but in the way that comes from knowing you're about to right a wrong. Several wrongs, actually. I spotted Derek, Adam, and Tyler still holding court near the bar. They were laughing loudly, Derek gesturing wildly as he told some story. I approached them directly, no longer feeling the need to avoid confrontation. "Welcome back," Derek said when he noticed me, his tone surprised. "Thought you'd left us for good." "Just needed some air," I replied with a smile that felt genuine for the first time that night. "We were just talking about work," Adam said, clearly eager to continue making me feel excluded. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me," I said, projecting confidence. "I'm interested in what you do at SupplySync." The 3 exchanged glances, clearly amused by my interest. Derek took the bait. "Well, I lead the marketing strategy for our enterprise clients," he said, inflating his role slightly. "It's pretty high-level stuff. I report directly to the VP of Marketing." "That sounds impressive," I said. "And what's your take on the company's latest pivot toward more transparent client relationships?" Derek looked momentarily flustered. Yeah, that's actually something I've been championing." Curtis. A complete lie. He had argued against it in multiple meetings. "And Adam, how are you finding the new commission structure in sales?" I asked it, knowing it had been implemented specifically to discourage the kind of aggressive tactics he employed. "It's challenging," Adam admitted, clearly surprised I knew about it. "But I'm adapting. Still top of the leaderboard." Another exaggeration. I turned to Tyler. "And the new user privacy features in development, are you directly involved with those?" Tyler nodded cautiously. "To some extent." How do you know about all this? I thought you said you weren't working. I keep up with industry news, I said vaguely. SupplySync is making waves. I'm curious though, what do you think of the company leadership? The CEO is pretty mysterious, right? Totally, Derek said, eager to demonstrate insider knowledge. Nobody really knows her. She's like a ghost, leaves all the public stuff to the CFO and COO. What have you heard about her? I pressed. Derek leaned in. Word is she's kind of a control freak, obsessed with company culture and ethics and all that touchy-feely stuff. But hey, the company's successful, so whatever works right. Interesting perspective, I said, checking my watch discreetly. 8:57 p.m. Why so interested in SupplySync? Adam asked suspiciously. Thinking of applying after all, I could put in a word, but I don't know. He trailed off with a smirk. Something like that, I replied. At precisely 9:00 p.m., Derek's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at it, then frowned. What the hell? Adam's phone pinged next, followed by Tyler's. All three looked at their screens with growing confusion. Is this some kind of joke? Derek muttered, his face paling as he read. I've been terminated, Adam said incredulously. Effective immediately. What the fuck? Tyler was silent, staring at his phone in disbelief. What's going on? I asked innocently. Derek looked up at me, then back at his phone. This email. It says I've been terminated for ethics violations and misrepresentation of company values. His voice was tight with confusion. It's signed by... His eyes widened as he read the name. Joyce Thompson, CEO and founder. I completed for him. I believe you all work for me. Or rather you did until just now. The silence that followed was deafening even amidst the music and chatter of the reunion. Derek's face cycled through emotions, confusion, disbelief, realization, and finally anger. This is bullshit, he sputtered. You can't just fire us because of some high school grudge. This is completely unprofessional. The terminations are for documented ethics violations, I said calmly. Every reason is detailed in your letters. Your company emails have already been deactivated, and security will meet you Monday morning to collect your belongings. Your final paychecks, including severance as outlined in your contracts, will be processed by HR on Monday. Adam had gone pale. But I have a mortgage, a family. You should have thought about that before using manipulative sales tactics that violated our explicitly stated company values. I replied, my voice level but firm. Tyler hadn't spoken yet. He just kept rereading the email, his expression unreadable. You won't get away with this, Derek threatened, his voice rising. This is clearly retaliatory and personal. I'll sue. Feel free to consult with legal representation, I said. Though I should warn you that our documentation is thorough. Your termination is for legitimate business reasons that have nothing to do with our high school history. Though I admit the timing is poetic. Several nearby classmates had started to take notice of our tense conversation. Derek realized they were watching and lowered his voice. You can't do this to me, he hissed. Do you know how this will look on my resume? About as bad as being caught falsifying marketing results and taking credit for your team's work, I replied. The termination letter spells it all out. I'd be happy to provide references explaining exactly why you were let go. Derek looked like he might explode. Adam seemed on the verge of tears. Only Tyler maintained some composure. I never knew, Tyler said quietly, that you founded SupplySync, that you were the CEO. No one here did, I acknowledged. I've kept a low profile intentionally. All this time, Derek said, the realization dawning on him, when I was bragging about my job, my position, you were my boss. The entire time, I confirmed. Why didn't you say something? Adam demanded. Would it have changed anything? I asked. Would you have apologized for how you treated me in high school? Would you have suddenly respected me? Or would you have just pretended to because of my position? None of them had an answer for that. For what it's worth, I added, your terminations aren't about high school. They're about who you are now, the ethical choices you've made as adults. The patterns just happen to be consistent. I stepped back, ready to walk away, but decided to add one final thought. In high school, you made me feel small because of my passion for computers. That passion built a company that employed you. Think about that. I turned and walked away, feeling surprisingly calm. Several classmates who had overheard parts of the exchange stared at me with new eyes as I passed. I nodded politely, but didn't stop to explain. As I left the reunion early, I heard the whispers starting behind me. By morning, everyone would know. Joyce Thompson, the computer nerd they'd all underestimated, had built a multi-million-dollar tech company. and she had just fired 3 of her high school bullies on the spot. The moment I got home from the reunion, my phone exploded with notifications. Former classmates were finding me on LinkedIn, sending friend requests on Facebook, and flooding my rarely used Instagram with follow requests. The whispers had turned into shouts, apparently. I ignored most of it, but did take Megan's call. "Holy crap," she said when I answered. "Sarah from chemistry just texted me asking if it's true that you fired Derek and his friends at the reunion. Word is spreading like wildfire." "It's true," I confirmed, kicking off my heels and collapsing onto my couch. "How do you feel?" she asked carefully. I considered the question. Conflicted, justified, exhausted, all of the above. Was it worth it? "Ask me again on Monday," I said. That's when reality will hit. Reality hit faster than I anticipated. By Sunday morning, I had emails from both the VP of Marketing and the VP of Sales concerned about the abrupt terminations. I called an emergency executive team meeting for Sunday afternoon at our headquarters. Our conference room felt strange on a Sunday. Quiet and empty except for my leadership team. 7 concerned faces looked back at me as I explained the situation. "So to be clear," said Marcus, our VP of Marketing, "you fired Derek and 2 others because you discovered ethics violations while doing background research before your high school reunion. Put that way, it sounded suspicious even to me. I discovered the violations by accident," I clarified. "I hadn't connected that they worked for us until they mentioned it at the reunion. Once I realized who they were, I did look into their work records where I found the violations, which would never have happened if they hadn't been your former classmates," pointed out Jasmine, our HR director. Her expression was concerned. "Joyce, I respect you tremendously, but this opens us up to potential legal issues. The timing and circumstances could easily be construed as personal rather than professional. The violations were real," I insisted. "Derek misrepresented product capabilities to clients and took credit for his team's work. Adam used manipulative sales tactics and may have falsified expense reports. Tyler was less problematic, but still involved in projects that violated our privacy policies." "All true," Sarah, my COO, confirmed. "I've reviewed everything Joyce sent over. The documentation is solid." "But the timing," Jasmine persisted, "and the manner, termination emails on a Saturday night during a social event. She was right and I knew it." I sighed. "The timing was reactive. I acknowledge that, but the reasons were legitimate. We're not questioning your authority," Marcus said carefully, "or even the merit of the terminations themselves. But the process matters both legally and for company morale." The meeting continued for 2 hours. We discussed possible legal ramifications, communication strategies, and how to handle the inevitable fallout. By the end, we had a plan. We would stand by the terminations, but acknowledge that the process had been unusual. We would be transparent with the rest of the company about the ethical violations, without mentioning my personal history with the terminated employees. The next day, Monday, was chaotic. Rumours spread through the office like wildfire. I called an all-hands meeting to address the situation directly. As some of you may have heard, I began facing 200 curious faces. 3 employees were terminated over the weekend for ethics violations. This is not typical, and I want to be transparent about what happened. I explained the violations in general terms, emphasizing our company values and the importance of upholding them. I did not mention the reunion or my history with Derek, Adam, and Tyler. "I know this seems sudden," I concluded, "and I understand that it may cause concern. My door is open if anyone has questions. What I want to make absolutely clear is that SupplySync's success is built on our collective commitment to ethical business practices and respectful relationships. Those aren't just words on our website. They're principles we must live by." The response was mixed. Some employees seemed reassured by my directness. Others remained skeptical, whispering among themselves as they left the meeting. Back in my office, I found messages from all 3 terminated employees. Derek's was angry, threatening legal action. Adam's pleaded for reconsideration, citing his family obligations. Tyler's was brief, simply acknowledging receipt of the termination and requesting information about next steps. Security reported that Derek had been combative when he came to collect his belongings, requiring an escort from the building. Adam had been tearful. Tyler had been quiet and professional. By the end of the day, I was emotionally drained. The adrenaline of the confrontation had worn off, replaced by anxiety about potential backlash. Had I made a terrible mistake? Had I abused my power? The questions kept me awake, late into the night, staring at my ceiling and wondering if satisfaction had been worth the cost. The next few weeks were among the most challenging of my professional life. The terminations, especially Derek's, sparked a small but noticeable crisis within our company and industry. LinkedIn became ground zero for the drama. Derek posted a vague but pointed message about unprofessional leadership and personal vendettas in the workplace, without naming me or SupplySync directly. It received dozens of supportive comments from his connections, including several of our own employees who didn't know the full story. Meanwhile, industry gossip spread quickly. I received texts from other tech CEOs, some supportive, others concerned. Heard you fired someone at your high school reunion. One messaged, brutal but kind of badass. You okay? The legal department confirmed we had received letters from attorneys representing both Derek and Adam, claiming wrongful termination and threatening lawsuits. Our legal team was confident we could defend the terminations based on the documented violations, but warned that litigation would be expensive and potentially damaging to our reputation regardless of the outcome. Inside the company, the atmosphere was tense. I noticed employees going quiet when I entered rooms or exchanging glances when I spoke in meetings. It hurt more than I expected. I had always prided myself on running an ethical company with a healthy culture, and now I felt like the villain. Sarah, ever my voice of reason, suggested I meet one-on-one with team leads to rebuild trust. They need to see that you're still the same leader they've always respected, she advised. This incident has shaken their image of you. She was right. I scheduled coffee meetings with 15 team leads over the next week. The conversations were initially awkward, but gradually opened up as I listened to their concerns without becoming defensive. People are worried that they could be fired on a whim, one engineering lead told me frankly. They're walking on eggshells. That's the last thing I want, I assured her. The terminations were for documented ethics violations, not personal whims. I've learned that the timing and manner could have been handled better, and I take full responsibility for that. Slowly, trust began to rebuild within the company, but externally, the situation remained complicated. Derek had started reaching out to me through every channel possible, email, LinkedIn, even trying to contact me through mutual connections. Most messages were angry, accusing me of destroying his career over a high school grudge. I didn't respond to any of them on advice from our legal team. Adam sent a single email apologizing for his behavior, both in high school and at the reunion, but still maintaining that his termination was unfair. I forwarded it to legal without replying. Tyler's response surprised me most. About 2 weeks after the terminations, I received a thoughtfully written email from him. Joyce, I've been reflecting on everything that happened. While I still believe my termination was abrupt, I understand the ethical concerns about the projects I was involved with. More importantly, I want to apologize for my role in how we treated you in high school. I was insecure and followed Derek's lead instead of standing up for what was right. I'm truly sorry for any pain I caused you. I won't contest the termination and wish you and SupplySync success going forward. I read the email several times, unsure how to respond. It felt genuine, unlike Adam's more self-serving apology. After consulting with legal, I sent a brief but cordial response acknowledging his apology and wishing him well in his future endeavors. The professional consequences continued to unfold. One client who had worked closely with Derek called to express concerns about continuity. 2 others hinted that they had heard rumors about leadership issues at SupplySync. Our sales team reported that competitors were using the situation to suggest our company was unstable. On a personal level, I was struggling with doubt. Though the terminations were justified on paper, I couldn't deny that my discovery of the violations had been motivated by personal history. Would I have looked as closely at their records if they hadn't been my high school bullies? Would I have acted so quickly and decisively? My therapist helped me work through these questions during our weekly sessions. You're holding yourself to an impossible standard, she pointed out. You're human. Of course your personal history influenced your actions. The question is whether your decisions were still ethically sound, and from what you've described they were. But I enjoyed it, I admitted ashamed. In that moment, when I told them who I was, when I saw the realization on their faces, I enjoyed it. Doesn't that make me just as bad as they were? Feeling satisfaction when someone who hurt you faces consequences isn't the same as taking pleasure in causing harm, she replied. You didn't set out to destroy their careers. You discovered legitimate ethical violations and acted on them. The timing and personal history add complexity, but don't negate the validity of your actions. Her words helped, but the sleepless nights continued. I found myself second-guessing decisions I would have made confidently before. The weight of leadership felt heavier than it ever had. In search of perspective, I reached out to a mentor. the angel investor who had provided my first significant funding. Maria had always been brutally honest with me, which was exactly what I needed. "You screwed up the execution, not the decision," she told me bluntly over coffee. Those terminations were justified, but should have gone through proper channels. The reunion confrontation was understandable, but unprofessional. Learn from it and move on. Don't let one mistake undermine your confidence as a leader. She was right. I couldn't change what had happened, but I could learn from it and use the experience to grow both personally and as a CEO. The weeks following the terminations became a period of intense professional and personal growth. As the initial drama settled, I found myself facing challenges I hadn't anticipated, but also discovering strengths I didn't know I had. The most visible professional consequence was a small but impactful PR crisis. A tech blog picked up the story. SupplySync CEO fires high school bullies at reunion. And while they got many details wrong, the core narrative spread quickly through the industry. Some portrayed it as justified karma, others as unprofessional conduct unbecoming of a CEO. I decided to address it directly rather than hiding. With help from our communications team, I issued a statement acknowledging that 3 employees had been terminated after ethics violations came to light, while emphasizing our company's commitment to integrity and professionalism. I didn't mention the high school connection or the reunion, focusing instead on our values and forward direction. Internally, I used this situation as a catalyst for positive change. Working with Jasmine from HR, we implemented stronger ethics training and created clearer channels for reporting concerns. We also established a more structured termination process with additional oversight to ensure fair treatment for all employees. If something good can come from this mess, I told Sarah as we reviewed the new policies, it's that we're building a more transparent and equitable workplace. The legal threats from Derek and Adam eventually faded. Our documentation of their violations proved solid enough that their attorneys advised them a lawsuit would likely fail. Derek continued to badmouth me in industry circles, but his influence waned as more people learned the full story. Tyler took a different path. About a month after his apology email, he requested a coffee meeting. After consulting with legal, I agreed to meet him at a cafe near our office. "I want to thank you for responding to my apology," he said once we'd settled with our drinks. "You had every reason to ignore me." "Your email seemed sincere," I replied cautiously. "It was." He looked down at his coffee. "The termination was a wake-up call. I've been doing a lot of thinking about who I've been and who I want to be." He explained that he'd found a new job at a smaller tech company and was committed to bringing stronger ethical awareness to his work. He also shared that he'd distanced himself from Derek, realizing how toxic that friendship had been. "I'm not asking for anything," Tyler clarified. "I just wanted you to know that while getting fired was painful, it pushed me to make changes I probably should have made years ago." Our conversation was brief, but surprisingly healing. I didn't offer him his job back. That bridge was burned. But I did wish him well and meant it. "For what it's worth," he said as we parted. "What you've built with SupplySync is incredible. I didn't appreciate that when I worked there too, caught up in office politics and following Derek's lead. But it's a special company with an important mission." His words meant more than I expected. In the midst of all the doubt and second-guessing, it was validating to hear that the company I'd built from nothing was valued not just for its success, but for its purpose. The personal harassment from Derek continued sporadically. He tried contacting me through various channels, his messages alternating between angry accusations and manipulative attempts at reconciliation. I maintained a policy of no direct engagement, forwarding everything to legal and focusing on moving forward. Adam reached out once more, asking for a reference despite everything. I declined through HR, offering only to confirm his dates of employment if contacted by potential employers. The hardest part of the aftermath was facing my own lingering insecurities. For years, I had kept a low profile, partly out of strategic choice, but honestly, also because some part of me still heard those hallway taunts from high school. Some part of me still felt like the awkward computer girl who didn't belong in the spotlight. The reunion and its fallout forced me to confront that lingering self-doubt. I had built a successful company, created hundreds of jobs, and developed technology that genuinely improved business efficiency around the world. Yet I had been hiding in the shadows, almost ashamed of my success. "No more," I told Megan over dinner 6 weeks after the reunion. "I'm done downplaying what I've built." "About time," she replied with a smile. "The world needs to see more CEOs like you." especially young women who've succeeded in tech on their own terms. With encouragement from my executive team, I began accepting speaking engagements at industry conferences. I gave interviews to business publications. I joined panels discussing tech innovation and ethical leadership. Each public appearance was terrifying at first, but gradually became easier. At one conference, a young woman approached me after my presentation on ethical AI development. "I just wanted to say thank you," she said nervously. "I'm studying computer science and seeing someone like you leading a major tech company. It matters. It makes it easier to ignore the people who say women don't belong in tech." Her words hit me hard. I had been so focused on my own journey that I hadn't fully considered how my visibility might impact others facing similar obstacles. "Never let anyone tell you what you can or can't do with computers," I told her. "The people who mock your passions today might end up working for you tomorrow." We both laughed, though she didn't know just how literally I meant it. That conversation sparked another idea. I worked with our community outreach team to establish a mentorship program for young women interested in tech careers. We partnered with local high schools and colleges, offering internships, coding workshops, and career guidance. During one mentorship session, I finally shared my full story with a group of teenage girls. The bullying, the rejection from MIT, building my company in my parents' basement, and yes, even the reunion confrontation. "The point isn't that I got revenge," I told them. "The point is that I succeeded despite the obstacles, and you can too. And when you succeed, you'll have the power to create workplaces where bullying and unethical behavior aren't tolerated." As the months passed, the reunion incident faded from industry gossip. SupplySync continued to grow, landing major new clients and expanding our product offerings. Our company culture strengthened with employee satisfaction scores higher than they'd been before the terminations. I also reconnected with several former classmates who reached out after the reunion with genuine interest rather than opportunism. Some shared their own stories of being bullied by Derek and his friends. Others simply wanted to reconnect as adults, free from high school hierarchies. These renewed connections were unexpectedly meaningful, healing old wounds I hadn't realized were still open. 6 months after the reunion, SupplySync was thriving. We had just closed our biggest quarter ever, signed 3 major new enterprise clients, and expanded our Seattle headquarters. The teams that had lost Derek and Adam were performing better than ever, with new leadership bringing fresh ideas and stronger ethical alignment. The legal threats had never materialized into actual lawsuits. Our documentation had been solid, and despite Derek's continued attempts to damage my reputation in the industry, his influence had waned significantly. Most people had either forgotten the incident or remembered it as an example of a CEO upholding company values rather than a personal vendetta. Personally, I had undergone a transformation as well. I no longer hid my success or downplayed my accomplishments. I had become more comfortable with public speaking, even enjoying the opportunities to share my expertise and vision for ethical technology. Industry publications that once couldn't get me to comment now featured me regularly in discussions about supply chain innovation and leadership. The mentorship program for young women in tech had expanded to 5 cities with plans for national growth. Nothing gave me more satisfaction than seeing these bright, ambitious young women gaining confidence in their technical abilities and leadership potential. "You know," Megan said during our monthly dinner, "it's like the reunion was some kind of catalyst. You're different now, more confident, more open." It forced me to confront things I'd been avoiding, I admitted. Not just my history with Derek and his friends, but my own reluctance to fully step into my role as a leader. I was hiding behind my computer code because it felt safer than putting myself out there. "Well, I like this version of Joyce," she said, raising her glass in a toast. "To no more hiding." "To no more hiding," I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. That evening, I received an unexpected email from Tyler. He had been quiet since our coffee meeting months earlier, and I was surprised to hear from him again. "I hope this email finds you well," he wrote. "I've been following SupplySync's success and your recent speaking engagements. It's inspiring to see the company continuing to thrive. I'm writing because I've been reflecting more on our high school days and the person I was then. I was wondering if you might be willing to meet for coffee again. I understand completely if you'd prefer not to." I considered ignoring it, but something in his consistent attempts to make amends felt genuine. After consulting with Sarah, who advised caution but didn't object, I agreed to meet him at the same cafe as before. Tyler looked different somehow, more confident, yet humbler at the same time. He thanked me for agreeing to meet and got straight to the point. I've been doing a lot of therapy since everything happened, he said. Working through why I followed Derek so blindly, why I participated in bullying you and others. It's been eye-opening and honestly pretty uncomfortable. That takes courage, I acknowledged. Not as much as building a company from nothing, he countered. Look, I'm not here to ask for anything or to try to fix the past. I just wanted to tell you that seeing how you've handled everything, the terminations, the industry response, your increased visibility, it's been educational for me. You've shown real leadership even when it would have been easier to hide. His words were unexpected but appreciated. Thank you for saying that, I replied. It hasn't been easy, but it's been worth it. We talked for nearly an hour, not as former bully and victim, not as ex-CEO and terminated employee, but as two adults with a complicated shared history trying to make sense of it. Tyler shared that he was excelling at his new job and had started volunteering with an anti-bullying program at local schools. What about Derek and Adam? I finally asked, curiosity getting the better of me. Do you still keep in touch? Tyler shook his head. Derek hasn't changed. He's still blaming everyone but himself. Last I heard, he was struggling to find a comparable position. Apparently word has spread about his ethics issues. Adam actually apologized to me recently for some of his behavior at SupplySync. I think he's doing delivery app work while looking for another sales job. I nodded, feeling no satisfaction at their struggles, but no sympathy either. They were facing the natural consequences of their choices just as I had faced mine. As we prepared to leave, Tyler asked one last question. If you could go back to that reunion night, would you handle things differently? I considered this carefully. Professionally speaking, yes. I should have followed proper channels and processes, but personally, I needed that confrontation. I needed to finally stand up to the people who made me feel small for so many years. So it's complicated. Life usually is, Tyler agreed. We parted on good terms, not friends exactly, but no longer enemies. It was an unexpected form of closure, and I felt lighter walking back to the office. That evening, I found myself reflecting on the entire journey. From the bullied high school student obsessed with computers, to the entrepreneur coding in her parents' basement, to the CEO confronting her past at a reunion, to the leader I had become since then. Each version of me had been necessary, each experience formative. The bullying had been painful, but it had also fueled my determination. The reunion confrontation had been imperfect, but it had forced me to step fully into my power. Even the aftermath, difficult as it was, had pushed me to become a more visible, confident leader. I realized that true success wasn't just about building a valuable company or proving my bullies wrong. It was about becoming someone who could use her power ethically, who could create opportunities for others, who could face her past and grow from it rather than being defined by it. The girl who had been mocked for loving computers had built a technology company that employed hundreds. The woman who had hidden her success had found her voice as a leader and mentor. And the CEO who had once acted impulsively out of old wounds had learned to balance justice with wisdom. Why don't you program yourself a life, Joyce? Derek had taunted all those years ago. Well, I had programmed myself a life, just not the one he or anyone else had expected. And I was finally fully embracing it. Have you ever stood up to someone who underestimated you, or found yourself in a position where your past and present collided in unexpected ways? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need this reminder. Sometimes the people who mock your passion today might end up working for you tomorrow. Thank you for joining me on this journey, and remember, your worth isn't determined by those who fail to see it.